This is Bletchley Park, the home of Station X, Britain's best-kept secret of World War II. The work of the code breakers wasn't done in the wonderful manor house, but rather in huts like these, which you can see here. These are prefabricated, obviously built in a rush during the Second World War, and unfortunately, as you can see again, sadly left to rot in the aftermath of the Cold War. It's astonishing to think that the work of the people who occupied these buildings in the early 1940s saved 2 years of the war and probably 20 million lives, according to General Dwight Eisenhower, the Supreme Commander of the Allied Forces.
Professor Leonard Willoughby had been a code breaker in the First World War, working on naval ciphers, and I think he must have recommended me to BP. I'm certainly delighted he did. Tunny was used strictly between the top generals. For instance, the head of the German army, Keitel, his chief of staff, Jodl, his subordinate, Vallemont. These are the names that kept on coming up signing these messages. Some of the messages were signed by Hitler himself. I know because I broke one or two myself. Because there was a quite astonishingly brilliant man whom nobody has ever heard of, called Bill Tutt. He was a 24-year-old mathematician, and by sheer iron logic he worked out how the system worked. If you consider there were 3 levels of encryption, it was an extraordinary performance. Somebody's called it the outstanding mental feat of last century. Not just the war, last century. And when you consider what happened last century, this is really something. It took him 2.5 months. A man called Colonel Tiltman, who interviewed me when I went to Bletchley, managed to break these 2 messages, but he couldn't work out the system, and the job was passed to Bill Tutt, and he slaved away at it. I was working on my cipher system in the same office as Tutt, and I used to see him staring into the middle distance and twiddling his pencil and making endless counts, and I used to wonder whether he was really getting anything done, but he most emphatically was. What you must realise, people get fixated on Colossus. It was so important for the development of the computer. What you must realise first is it wouldn't have happened if Tutt hadn't broken Tunny, at least not at that time. The second thing is that for 18 months we were breaking Tunny by hand. On the 15th of February 1944, Colossus came on stream.
Now this was built by Tommy Flowers from the General Post Office.
Built by Tommy Flowers, who doesn't get anything like the credit he ought to get. This is the man who laid the foundation of today's computer world. When we sit down at a laptop, we should think of Tommy Flowers. Nobody ever does.
How did he go about in developing Colossus? Did he take Bill Tutt's thinking and translate that into electronics?
Very good question. A very good question. I'm not a machine man, so you won't get a perfect answer from me. What I do know is that he was briefed by 3 or 4 people And they included, Turing was one of them, Bill Tutt was certainly one of them, maybe Tiltman, I don't know, but there's at least one other person there. And they told him what they wanted the machine to do. And what they wanted the machine to do was rapid counts, counting the frequency of certain phenomena. And it had to be flexible because it had to deal with the 12 wheels individually, and it had to obey instructions that the cryptographers would give it.
In other words, it had to be programmable.
It had to be programmable. To have invented a way of doing this is in itself a remarkable achievement. Tommy Flowers had solved the problem of using valves because when he told colleagues he was going to use valves, they said, "You're mad, you know, they're not reliable, they'll let you down." And he solved that with a very simple idea. You never turn them off.
In terms of the importance of the development of computing, where would you put Colossus?
Absolutely fundamental. Absolutely fundamental. It gave you the fast speed. It gave you the flexibility of programmability. What more do you want?